Wheat's on the move. Prices have spiked as extreme heat hits China's growing regions, and dryness lingers across Europe and Australia. Traders are watching closely as funds scramble to cover shorts. But it's not just wheat. Oilseeds and corn are in the mix too, with U.S. biodiesel rumors, strong planting pace, and weather risks shifting the outlook. I'm Johanna Bota, and with us today to break it all down is StoneX VP of Clearing and Execution Sales, Bertrand Oesterle. Welcome, Bertrand.
Good morning, Joanna.
So what suddenly happened in wheat? How do you explain the price surge?
So it's been all about China. So we've been mentioning 2 or 3 weeks ago that China had a deficit in moisture for the northern Chinese plains, and 25% of the area is affected. Last Friday, the Chinese government put a warning out stating that from Monday to Thursday this week, there would be some very hot winds. And we had an LSEG report yesterday stating that the Hebei province was recording 42.4 degrees Celsius, and Henan province, which is the main producing area, 41.5 degrees Celsius.
That's hot.
It is really hot. So now it all depends on how you look at how hot it is and what stage of development the wheat is at. So when we listen to the bears, they tell us that the wheat thinning stage was almost over, so the heat is not going to have that much impact. When we listen to the bulls, they say the wheat thinning stage wasn't that over, and therefore we could see some significant impact in the affected areas by 20 to 30% in their mind. So it puts back in perspective what we were talking about yesterday after the USDA report. People have in mind that China produces 130 to 135 million tons. The USDA report last week was putting 140 for old crop, 142 for new crop. We may not be anywhere near those figures, and it may impact the global stocks overall, because China is a producer that eats its own crop. And if China comes to the import market, or if it uses its stocks, it could have an impact, and it could push the specs to review how they've positioned themselves on wheat on large expectation of stocks if those Chinese figures are not there.
Wow.
So then beyond that, we've had Europe. So the European situation is hoping for rain. We still have some dry patches, especially in northern Germany, parts of northern Poland, parts of Scandinavia, the UK still, and a pocket northwest of Paris, more or less. Now, we have rain in the forecast. We just need to find out if that rain is going to be sufficient. Generally speaking, we still feel that Europe is on a recovery path. It's looking great overall, but we need rain for sure in northern Germany. And you mentioned Australia in your introduction. Australia is at a very early stage. They're just planting, but it's very dry in southern Australia, and we're going to have to watch how this is going to affect the crop going forward. So over the past few weeks and months, we've been talking about the bulls trying to bring a dryness story. They got it wrong about the US, they got it wrong about the Black Sea, they're not too sure about Europe. Suddenly there is this China story. What does it mean for our market? It means that it's going to be interesting from an international tender point of view. If international buyers like Algeria, Morocco, Egypt start to think that China could come to the market to compete with them, they might put more tenders in, preempting a potential participation from China. And the immediate risk that we've seen was yesterday some short covering. So Chicago wheat went up significantly. Paris was up €6. We had 68,000 lots of volume in September. But then the open interest moved by about 15,000 lots. It's reduced by 15,000 lots. It is indeed an indication that the funds have covered, but it's not as large as people would have potentially feared. So some of my bears would say, bring on the rally, we'll sell into it.
So is there any hope then elsewhere to balance this risk?
So first of all, yes, with the US, the situation in the US is pretty good at present. The winter wheat conditions are 52% good to excellent. They've dropped 2% from last week, but they're still beyond the 5-year average of 49%. Then earlier this week, we had the Kansas crop tour, and it came up with a 53 bushel per acre estimate, which is very high. It's way higher than the 5-year average of 44.3. And last week we were mentioning the 51.6 bushel per acre for the entire crop in the US, which is higher than what we've seen over the past 5 years. But it is looking achievable when we consider that good Kansas crop tool, especially when we see the spring crop being 82% planted so far, which is well above the 5-year average as well of 65%. And then if we look elsewhere, we've got a Russian update to give you as well.
Russia?
So Russia is interesting because it gives us mixed messages. So Novorossiysk and Rostov have given us some farm emergency messages. Those farm emergency messages are broadly for farmers to be able to claim. The bears are highlighting that it's 100,000 hectares, it's not much, and it can be replanted with spring wheat. The bears are really focusing on spring wheat in Russia, stating that spring wheat is looking really good, and in their mind we're going to have an 85 to 90 million ton crop. Now conversely, the bulls are saying that the frost issue has been vastly undermined, and in their mind, the production is 79 to 83 million tons. So we've got a real dichotomy between the bulls and the bears on what Russia is going to be, and we're going to have to watch that over the next few weeks.
And what about Kazakhstan and Argentina, who are also players here?
Kazakhstan has had some issues with its planting recently for spring crops. It's been raining too much, so it's problematic now for planting. It's going to be good for later. And Argentina, similarly, we still expect a very good crop out of Argentina. The estimates are really high, 20.5 to 21 million tons, but there has been some excessive rain.
Okay, well, it seems like this week is all about wheat, but what about any mention of corn or oilseeds?
So in oilseeds, we're still waiting for the elusive EPA decision. So we've been mentioning it for about a month, saying that it's imminent. The EPA has finally sent its suggestions to the White House, so we know that it's coming. Our US analyst was stating that he was expecting the EPA to give a decision before Memorial Day, which is Monday, next Monday. So we're likely to have something maybe Friday evening after the market shuts. Now, there's been some talk of leak of information. The figure that has been put out this week was 4.6 billion gallons. So 4.6 is a very good figure. It's 1/3 more capacity. But on the back of it, we saw the specs reducing their position in soybean oil. Why? Because they were expecting way higher, 5.25 to 7.5. So we still don't know what that figure is, but we've had spec long covering. Now, this morning, soybean oil is up. And why? Because we've got some geopolitical element coming into our market with the Israel-Iran story. CNN was mentioning that Israel was potentially planning to hit the nuclear facilities in Iran. So crude went up, and therefore corn and soybean are picking up from that spillover support. To stay on the US overall, if we look at the crop progress, soybean is planted very fast. It's 66% planted so far. It's above the 5-year average of 53%. In corn, we're 78% planted, which is above the 5-year average of 73%. And the thing that is interesting, the bulls are trying to create a story that the bears are finding ridiculous, but I've got to mention it. The bulls are talking of a 1 to 2 months US weather module, which would show temperatures above normal. So we've mentioned last week that the USDA has gone high, for example, in corn with 181 bushel per acre. We were saying that we need ideal weather to get to that 181, especially when it's above what we've seen over the past 5 years. And the bulls are saying with that weather module, it might be difficult. It might get bullish over the next 2 months. Now the bears are saying those modules have got little veracity. They've got a hit target of about 25%. It's not that important to watch just now. But the last element I'll mention is Argentina. The Buenos Aires Grain Exchange has mentioned that they've had some very heavy rains in the northwestern part of Buenos Aires province, and that is going to affect production in corn and soybean for what is left to harvest.
And last but not least, anything on Brazil?
So Brazil, there's only been one bit of interest so far. The Brazilians have signed a memorandum with the Chinese to sell DDGS, and that's going to create some competition to the US.
Thank you, Bertrand. Lots to think about, and we'll still wait for that decision, hopefully coming out next week. And thank you for watching. For more financial content like this, please like and subscribe to our channel.